Welcome to A Slob Comes Clean, the podcast. I'm Dana K. White, author of the Wall Street Journal bestselling book, Decluttering at the Speed of Life. I share cleaning and organizing strategies that actually work in real life for real people, people who don't love cleaning and organizing. Thanks for joining me today. This is podcast number 305, I think, right? Y'all know I get mixed up. It's podcast number 305, and I'm talking to Heather, and I'm calling it Letting Yourself Celebrate Success, even if you aren't finished, or something like that. So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about not stuff shifting, like actually making real, legitimate progress, but then also like enjoying it, because there is such value in having made any bit of a win, even before you're finished. There is such value in that, and shifting your mindset to be able to celebrate what you have done even before you are completely finished. You know, knowing that some of us are never going to be completely finished, but being able to celebrate that, giving yourself permission will take you far, because that is what's going to encourage you to actually keep going. Where when you feel like it's never enough, then it's harder to motivate yourself to get started. Okay. So, but before we do that, I want to make sure you guys know, I know not all of you are writers. I totally get that, but a lot of you are. And a lot of you have different, ambitions and business ambitions and things like that. So I just want to remind you that next Tuesday, October 5th, from 7 p.m. Central to probably 9 p.m. Central, I'm going to do a live webinar. It is going to be recorded. So if you can't come on that day, it is totally worth it to go ahead and get it so that you'll, have access to watch it later. So what I'm going to be doing is, sharing my book publishing journey, because I wanted to be a writer, and that's what I'm doing now. But I started out with an anonymous slob blog back in 2009. And so what is it that brought me from that to where I am now? And just generally, how do I make this into a business? Anyway, just because I get questions about this on a regular basis, because I know that the creative driven part of me is very much related to the don't see my home like other people do, and maybe don't put as much attention into my home sometimes. There's a relationship there, which means that a lot of you have, some of those interests as well. Anyway, so I'm asked about that a lot. I thought I'm just going to do this, and this way it exists for me to share. So the reason why you should sign up now instead of later, even though you will have, you can, if you're listening to this in, a year, you can go back and get the, what I recorded on October 5th, 2021. But if you, even if you're like, oh, I can't actually watch it then, but the reason that you want to go ahead now is that for those who watch the session, I do want you to watch the session. Don't just ask your questions, because I'll probably answer a lot of them within the session, the webinar. But for those of you who watch it before the 19th, which is 2 weeks after that, you can submit questions. So you can ask me very specific questions, and if I feel like answering them, I will. But I mean, because I know people have questions. So anyway, I am going to do a live Q&A in a Zoom meeting where you can attend it. And on that one will be a meeting, not a webinar. So the meeting, we'll be able to see each other, and you'll be able to, then verbally ask questions, after I get through the ones that were submitted ahead of time. So anyway, that's the reason to go ahead and check it out at aslobcomesclean.com/write, WRITE. And, okay, here we go. Let's talk to Heather. Okay, Heather, thank you so much for coming on and talking to me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is really fun. So let's talk about you first. Tell me what's your unique life situation?
Well, I was incredibly grateful to find you partway through last year, because I found you in July. My nephew moved in, taking our one spare bedroom in June. And then my mother-in-law was widowed at the end of June.
I'm so sorry.
And thank you. She and her dog moved in September.
Okay.
That meant that she broke her hip in September as well.
Oh, no.
And in August, we discovered a massive master bathroom issue and had to have a complete emergency remodel.
Oh, wow.
So my situation is that starting in mid-July, I knew that I was going to have to move stuff around, but I didn't know quite what the deadline was going to be. But my husband and I were going to have to move from the downstairs master bedroom to the upstairs bedroom, which was occupied by my nephew, who was going to have to move into the craft room, which needed to be emptied.
Oh, wow.
And I'm one of your people. So maybe you can imagine what my craft room looked like.
I think we can imagine. Yeah, we'll take guesses.
And unbeknownst to me, my garage also was going to need to be a priority. And I'm so glad that I followed your method and started it, because having a complete bathroom remodel takes an awful lot of space in the garage.
It does. Remodeling is kind of the worst. I mean, the results are great, but I mean, having to move everything out of a space is so incredibly stressful. Yes.
I had 18 sheets of drywall against pantry shelves.
Wow.
And I was so grateful that I had been using your method, because when I needed something that I couldn't see and couldn't reach, I asked somebody to grab it for me blindly, and they were able to.
Oh, wow. That's great. Okay. So basically, are you saying that every room in your house is basically being used to its fullest, and then the crafts that you used to have in the craft room in their own nice little space are now displaced? Is that right?
They are now in the living space downstairs.
Okay.
They are in the dining room and the living room. And I've really thought about this and how to phrase it right, because my house, I know that decluttering is not a project and you're never quite done. But in my head, it honestly feels like I might be 90-95% of the way there.
Okay.
But none of the empty spaces I have are where I need them.
Okay. We're going to get to that. Let's talk about some of the things that are working well for you. What are some things that you have applied in your home that you've seen the benefits from?
It started off with the container concept. That was huge. Although I am going to also say an issue that I have with the container concept.
Mm-hmm.
I see on an angle, I'm incapable of judging distance, and my spatial relation skills are pretty much non-existent. And one of the things that I'm definitely discovering is that I have containers that are way bigger than what I need, but I'm also physically incapable of driving, so I tend to consider containers precious.
Okay.
But the container concept, and no, if you have too much, it doesn't mean go get 10 new containers.
Right.
Was huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely huge. The take it there now, that was so important because so much of my stuff was moving up and downstairs. And I'm an overweight 45-year-old woman. I actually added a decluttering question. Is it worth doing stairs for this?
I hear that all the time, and it's the same for me. It's like, take it there now. Yeah, it's not worth taking it there now. I'd rather just stick it in the donate box. And that is such a valid, that's so valid, because you are reducing the hassle factor in your house.
And now the take it there now is so critically important in my life. And I don't do it timed. I don't set a 5-minute timer anymore. I used to, but now I just kind of take that as a concept, and I try to reset my house at night. And if it doesn't happen at night, I try to do it in the morning.
That's good.
And, I don't know if it takes 5 minutes or 20 minutes, but it's just a regular habit now.
Did you start with the 5 minutes?
I didn't start with the 5 minute. One of the first things that I did is, you were talking so much about dishes. My dishes weren't bad.
Mm-hmm.
My dining room table, on the other hand,
Mm-hmm.
that had dishes math. The first time I cleared my dining room table, it took an hour.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I say wow, but I'm also like, yeah, me too. I mean, like that's normal. And I love what you're doing there, because that's the thing is I'm always like, if you already have dishes under control, great. Keep doing what you're doing. But it comes down to what drives you crazy. Solve that problem today, solve it again tomorrow, solve it again the next day, until you come up with a strategy that works for you, a habit that works for you in your home. And as far as like doing the pickup, I think that is, I love that. It's like whatever you adjust, do it for yourself. The reason I do 5 minutes is just because for me personally, I had to come up with, I don't want to do this at all. Like that was that was me. I was like, I don't want to do this. It all seems so overwhelming. There's so much for me to do before I could ever catch up, that 5 minutes is the least amount of time that I could justify, but also make me feel like, okay, I'm not making this huge commitment. Like it was kind of like this very small commitment level, but you took that and you adjusted it to your house. Let's talk about one of our sponsors, Ritual. Gaps in the diet should not be ignored. Did you know that over 97% of women aged 19 to 50 are not getting enough vitamin D from their diet, and 95% are not getting their recommended daily intake of key omega-3s? But Ritual's Essential for Women 18 Plus multivitamin was formulated by exhaustive research to help fill nutrient gaps in the diets of women ages 18 plus. It is formulated with nutrients to help support brain health, bone health, blood health, and provide antioxidant support. That's one of the reasons that I love Ritual. Plus, honestly, I love that it's so easy to manage my subscription. So I've been having my Ritual vitamins delivered every month, but I got a little bit behind over the summer, kind of off my routine. So this month I logged into my account, skipped a month so that I can catch up. It was super easy. Took like literally 2 minutes to get that done. And here's what one of my podcast listeners had to say about Ritual. I've been taking them for 2 years. It eliminates me having to take multiple individual vitamins, and the omega-3 is easy to digest with no aftertaste. I first saw them at a professional conference for dietitians. I love it when I hear y'all's feedback on our sponsors. Right now, Ritual is offering my listeners 10% off your first 3 months. Visit ritual.com/clean and turn healthy habits into a ritual. That's 10% off at ritual.com/clean. ritual.com/clean. So let's talk about some of your challenges that you want to discuss in our time today.
Definitely the mental battle, because I'm on board with you. I've done stuff shifting most of my life. I'm like you in that my bedroom growing up was messy. My locker was messy. All of my spaces were always messy. So I understand how bad stuff shifting can actually be.
Yes.
But with where I'm at right now, I haven't figured out how to avoid it.
Okay. Give me an example of a situation where you feel like it's unavoidable.
I had an empty shelf in my downstairs hallway bathroom, which is your typical half bathroom, so it doesn't have tub or shower for massive humidity issues.
Okay.
I had space right there. I call them Costco dressers, but IKEA and everywhere else has them with the 8 slots and the drawer/cubby or whatever that slides into them.
Mm-hmm.
I desperately wanted one more, and then it turned out to be 2 more to reduce the visual clutter of my craft supplies. And I took the contents of 2 of the drawers and I moved them into the bathroom, because in my own head, I could actually take the drawer of batteries and dog stuff. Yeah, it combines my head, and get that where there was clear space and where I would know exactly where it was and it would be accessible. And then my drawer of soap making and bath product stuff, again, in my head, it worked in the bathroom. But I also had all of the guilt from knowing that I've done a lifetime of this and that it's never ended up in a good spot.
Okay.
But then
instead of focusing on the stuff shifting aspect of this, let's talk about two different things. First of all, you are not living in an ideal situation because you are living in a temporary make the best of it situation, correct? Because you've got your mother-in-law who's moved in permanently, but you have your nephew that in your notes you said is most likely going to be leaving at some point. We're not exactly sure when, but this is a temporary solution for him to be living there. So that means it's a temporary thing for you to not have your craft room. Is that correct?
It is, but because we also want to move somewhere between this coming fall and next spring, I also don't think that I'm going to be carting all my craft supplies back upstairs.
Okay. So let's talk about your craft supplies then. So a couple of things here. When you moved those things into the bathroom, is that the first place where you would look for it? Or did they kind of go into the bathroom because that felt convenient and now you have to like go through mental gymnastics to remind yourself of where they are?
I know exactly where they are now.
Okay.
It's just, okay, if the dogs need their nails clipped, that's in the bathroom, easy access. And the soap making, but that didn't come until after the decision was made.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'd lived in those two spaces for like 7 years.
In which two spaces? In the bathroom?
Where I had them.
Oh.
No, in the living room and dining room where I had them. So, I just kind of made my mind say, this is where they're at now. This is what's going to work.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I don't have a problem with those being in the bathroom. And as long as you know where they are, this is not ideal, because you have this kind of temporary situation where technically these things would have been in the craft room. They can't be in the craft room because you have someone there. You also don't want to move everything back up there when you know you're going to be moving. So it kind of is like, this isn't ideal, but as long as you would look for them there, my mother-in-law kept her checks, like her old whatever. I don't even know that they do this anymore because, we don't use a lot of, but yeah, those checkbook things, that had all your carbons in them, she kept those under the sink in her guest bathroom. It drove, I won't name names, but some people who tried to help a little bananas because they're like, why would these be in here? And I'm like, well, they're in here because this is where she knows that they are. So fine. If your house is under control, you're able to function, you're able to live, the place where you would look for it first, and in this situation, you had to kind of be creative to find that. But what I will say is, have you decluttered those spaces first? You said you had the thing with the, places to put things and stuff. Have you gone through that without first thinking of where am I going to put all this stuff and instead say, okay, what can I get rid of in this space? Like what in here is stuff that I just literally would never, get rid of your dust stuff, your trash, your, things that you wouldn't ever go looking for. You wouldn't know that you had it.
I did that in order to make space downstairs for everything coming out of the craft room.
Okay.
And now I find that just kind of organically when I grab something, oh, don't like that. Let's get rid of that.
Yes. Yeah, that's that lifestyle of decluttering that you start to experience after you have gotten rid of stuff and you start to go, wait a minute, this is just going to be a hassle in the future. So I don't even need it. That's good. Have you purposefully gone through that storage space that you have for your craft stuff to see if there's more that you can eliminate? Because one of the problems with crafts is that by nature of it being crafting, everything is useful. So here's the thing. If you want to keep it in your bathroom and if you're going to look for it there and you're going to know where things are, keep it in your bathroom. I don't care. It's your house. You decide. But if it kind of drives you crazy that that's in the bathroom. Then to say, okay, I have this storage space that fits in my house. And my reality is that I'm not going to want to move these things back up to the craft room. So this is where it's going to live until we move. Then embracing the container concept for that space and say, even though everything in here is stuff that I could use, I can't keep it all. And so I'm going to get rid of my least favorites until it only fits in this space. If it drives you crazy that that's in the bathroom. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do. I think what drives me crazy about the bathroom is that I stuff shift it and I'm so afraid of falling into an old bad habit.
Mm-hmm.
And
of shoving,
also,
yes. Yeah.
Yes. And it's so scary.
Yes.
That, it's like you're at the top of the hill and then is everything else going to slide? And my husband actually asked me, are you just self-sabotaging? And he told me, I just got 9 garbage bags of stuff to donate. Are you really worried about that? And I have done so much of what you're talking about. Now, I am a very, very active card maker. Mm-hmm. I make and get out of my house 800 to 1,000 cards a year.
Wow, that's amazing.
I do cards for my church, my mom's church, for the holidays, for the sisters of my church. I do the birthday cards, and I send out regular cards to friends and family. And by regular, I mean like 4 to 6 a week. Mm-hmm. So I do very actively use my stuff, but I have a problem, and I'm afraid that this problem is just who I am. I like to do big projects. For example, I like to donate about 300 cards a year to the USO at Thanksgiving time for Christmas. And when I do Easter cards, for example, I do 100 of them, and just over 100. That way I've got 60 for my church, 35 for mom's church, which then get set aside because I like to go to Florida twice a year. And I blame it on the fact that I grew up outside of Detroit and I do things assembly line.
Well, okay, here's my question for you. My guess is that your card making stuff is very organized. Is that correct? As far as like assembly line, and you know where things are, you have things. I mean, do you have it organized?
Not the way that I want it. I now have drawers full of containers of parts and pieces.
Okay. And what do you mean containers of parts and pieces?
Boxes that are labeled things like Christmas trees and are all die-cut Christmas trees. And boxes like this one is organized, and this is Valentine's cards to give to mom. And when I say this, gosh, that's what, like an 8x6 box? I know that one of my issues is that I've got containers that are way too big for the tiny pieces of paper in them. It was actually yesterday that I looked at a couple of Altoids containers that needed to be tossed out from my husband's vehicle. And I looked at it and I'm like, I wonder, I took things out of a big box and got them into an Altoid container.
That's excellent. I mean, that's exactly, because here's the thing. You just said you are holding onto containers because you don't drive. And so you don't feel in control of being able to get the perfect container. Is that right?
And I have no idea what the perfect container is.
Right. But what you did is exactly what you should do, which is because there are containers all over your house, like the Altoids container, for me, it was, I needed to do something for my, my book shoot, because this is basically one of my, I probably shouldn't say it because then it's not a new tip and I have to have new tips in there. But anyway, let's say that somebody was going to take a picture of, that kind of stuff. I went through basically packaging of stuff that had come into my house recently, and I was able to find everything I needed. I cut off a few of the lids and things, the little flap that came over. And I ended up with basically exactly what I needed to get a drawer organized. Like that. So what you're doing with the Altoids thing, yes, be thinking of that as you go, but also start. I don't want to say do math, because math is a thing that can help us procrastinate, but you said you have issues with spatial awareness and stuff.
Yes.
Say, okay, this is the space I want to devote to my craft stuff, whether it's this, whatever it is with the bins and things like that. Okay, this is the space, and start decluttering, down to what really fits in that space. And then maybe it's Altoid containers. This is the thing for the smaller things. And I'm not a stamper, because you're talking about stamps, right?
Stamps and dyes and paints and gel printing. Yeah.
Right. So that's not my thing. So I probably don't have exact, precise understanding of what we're talking about, but I do know that the container concept, the best way to get over the spatial awareness issue is to accept the boundaries of the container. Like, just instead of trying to prefigure it out, instead saying, okay, this is what's going to be the thing that I put my stamps in. Okay. And so this container is that. And then within that, I want to have my Christmas trees and my Easter eggs and my this and my that and my other divided out. So within that container might be other smaller containers, whether that's Altoids containers or it's, whatever. Then those smaller containers that hold these different categories of stamps have to all fit into this one, so it's that breaking it down and just letting the container make those decisions for you, because it feels like you're trying to figure it out how it's going to work. And in reality, I'm the same way. Like, I can't judge like how much is going to fit in something. Like, it doesn't even, so for me, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm going to put my favorite ones in first. And then that's going to help me know when I get to, oh, wow, sometimes it fits a lot more than I thought it was going to fit. Sometimes it fits way less than I thought. But at the same time, the container is the container. And if I run out of space for stamps, and I still have stamps I legitimately use, because this is a craft that you really do. Okay. You actually, this is something you do consistently. And, oh, I don't have enough space in this container for that. Okay, then what other container can I clean out? And I mean, do you have any spaces like a tub or something that holds maybe stuff for a craft that you don't do as often as you do the stamping?
Not anymore, because
Good.
That happened over the summer.
Let's talk about ButcherBox, one of our sponsors. So be prepared for whatever life throws your way with high quality meat delivered right to your door. Whenever you need a great tasting meal you can trust, ButcherBox is in your corner. And luckily, today's sponsor, ButcherBox, is offering our listeners ground beef for life. For a limited time, ButcherBox is giving new members 2 pounds of free ground beef in every order for the life of your membership. Imagine never having to shop for ground beef again. This deal is a no-brainer. And the process is so simple. Once signed up, you choose your box and delivery frequency. They offer 5 boxes, 4 curated box options, as well as the popular custom box, so you get exactly what you and your family love. 2, ButcherBox ships your order, frozen at peak freshness and packed in a 100% recyclable box, and shipping is always free. 3, you enjoy great tasting, high quality meat delivered right to your door. I love that I can customize my box or go with one of theirs. Either way, I get exactly what I want. I like to customize and love the chicken breasts and sirloin steaks and ground beef and roast. It's all yummy, and I love that it gets to my house already individually packed and frozen, so I can just stick it in my freezer. This is your chance to never have to shop for ground beef again. That's right. ButcherBox is giving new members free ground beef for life. Sign up at butcherbox.com/slob and get 2 pounds of ground beef free in every order for the life of your membership. Log on to butcherbox.com/slob to claim this deal.
This kind of ties into another issue that I'm currently having.
Okay.
Over the summer, I got rid of the big stuff. It was, oh yeah, I don't see myself going back to that. Get rid of that and everything to go along with it. Now, I have literally gone through my paper pads, and that's not what I hoard, and picked out, this is ugly, and only kept the sheets of paper that I like in the paper pads. And it is so tedious. And I used to be able to congratulate myself. Look, I cleaned like 6 feet of space out today. And now I'm looking and it's like, I cleaned out 40 pieces of paper today. And I already did the housework paper. That was one of the early things that I did. I don't feel that, yay me, I cleaned out half an inch of space today.
Okay. So what was your purpose in cleaning out the half an inch of space?
Just trying to make a little bit more room to be able to combine 2 containers into one and have more space.
So are you trying to clear out the stuff that you don't like as much before you combine?
Yes, and
Okay.
make room to combine so that stuff that's like on top of shelves, that it's messy up there and I didn't like it. Let's be able to get it into a drawer, into the container, but I need space to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So instead of, if you're wanting to move stuff from the top of a shelf, like let's say here's the drawer underneath and then there's a flat surface, and you're wanting to move stuff off of the flat surface into the space, into the drawer, try just doing one item by one item. Okay. So like, here's something I want off of this flat surface. I want to put it in this drawer. What's something that I can remove from this drawer to make room for this one item? Instead of saying, let me make difficult decisions to clear space in this drawer first. I mean, if that works, that works. That's great. But if it's not working for you, if you're not feeling that, say, okay, instead, I want to put this in the drawer. What can I take out of the drawer to make room for this? And it will trigger one of two things. It'll either be like, yeah, I don't want to get rid of anything in the drawer. So then this thing needs to go and it can just go in the donate box. Or it will help you see two things together and which one is more container worthy, which one is more drawer worthy. Does that make sense?
I like that. Yes, that makes perfect sense.
Because I think it's that you're tired of making space. And sometimes the making space feels like getting ready to make progress as opposed to actually making progress. And the more you can get something off of that flat surface, out of the visible cluttered area, then you're going to be making that visible progress in your home. And that is going to help renew that decluttering energy that right now is just being drained away because you're like, I'm so tired of getting rid of stuff. But instead, you're just choosing between two things. Or maybe choosing between this one thing that needs to go in there and the 5 things I would need to get rid of to make space for it or whatever. Space for space is always the goal.
Oh, that makes so much sense. I like the difference in the mindset there. Thank you.
Well, good. Sometimes I don't know if I make sense or not. Who knows? Okay. Now that we solved that problem, what's your next one that we want to talk about?
I think in general, how do you keep yourself motivated? And I really like what you just said, about the one thing to one thing. But because I don't drive, I had a donate closet that everything was stuffed into the donate closet until it couldn't be stuffed anymore. And then my husband would take it up. And I know that that's not ideal, but it's what I could make work.
You do what you got to do.
And I've gone from filling up the donate closet very regularly to, okay, it took me like 2 months to fill it up this time, to now I honestly have decluttered so much of my house that when I set out to do a decluttering project, I'm getting maybe a third of a grocery bag. And it's not because I'm trying to hold on to everything. Well, maybe it is because at this point, I've made so many of the get rid of it decisions that it feels like it's just all minutia now.
Okay, here's, and maybe I'm guessing incorrectly here, but it feels like decluttering has benefited you. And so, because maybe your house doesn't feel perfect yet, you feel like, okay, decluttering is the answer, because it is. I mean, we know that. Everybody who listens to this podcast knows decluttering is the answer. But has decluttering turned into kind of your obsession a little bit? What the reason I say that is, you are telling me that your house is so much better. I think maybe, and that you're getting to a point where you're like, I know I should probably keep decluttering, but I'm just not finding as much anymore. And so does that feel for some reason like failure, when instead you need to celebrate that? Like, that's a big deal. You should be so proud of yourself. And so live for a while, give yourself some time to, yes, it's a lifestyle of decluttering, but you just said that you will often identify clutter just throughout the course of your normal life, right? And you have a donate closet, so you have a space to go put things the minute that you decide that you don't need it anymore. So you basically have established a process to live a lifestyle of decluttering. Live life for a while. Like, let yourself craft without feeling guilty that you're not decluttering. And by doing that, by living in this space that you have spent so much time and work decluttering, you're going to start determining, oh, okay, this is, I've got the room to do this now. I've got the mental space to do this now, because I'm not feeling as guilty about decluttering, because you're going to let that go. And by going ahead and doing the thing that was really the reason that you were decluttering in the first place, was to be able to do this thing, then it's going to naturally present to you, oh, yeah, this space over here, I'm actually not using. You know what I mean? Because especially if you have all these crafting things, and because you're so focused on decluttering, you're not doing your crafting, then by doing the crafting, it's going to naturally reveal to you, because of what you've learned through the decluttering process, that, okay, now that I'm actually letting myself craft, yeah, I don't care about that kind of craft anymore. Like, like, I don't actually like that. So living will help with that. Does that make any sense?
That does. And I craft almost every day.
That's great.
Right. I've got a trip to Florida in June, and I'm over halfway done making the 140 cards that I'm bringing for my mom's church in June. And it feels like this is the wrong place to be saying this, because, we're about rules. And, here's the decluttering questions, and here's the rules to keep us on track. I have been very, very, very confused about, have I actually reached my clutter threshold or not reached it? Because I think, mentally hung up on the rules. And my husband told me that I stress declutter now, that I don't stress shop, I stress declutter.
That's good, right?
It is. Yeah. You're mentioning, now that you are now that you're allowing yourself to craft. And I'm thinking, yeah, before this interview, finished out the last component for the group of cards that I'm working on, so that when I'm watching television, I'll be able just to glue things together. And I'm thinking, in a lot of ways, you're right. I don't like some of the visual clutter that I have, but it's the stuff that I don't really want to get rid of, because I use it, if not every day, then maybe just 3 or 4 times a week. But 3 or 4 times a week means that I don't want to go shove it in another room to have to cart it out.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're talking about the rules. You're worried about the rules. And I think I just want to remind you that the rules are there. I rarely call them rules. Like, I don't think I call them rules. Maybe I do. But
that might just be me too.
But I think there's a disconnect there. And that's, so I, as the person who made up these strategies, literally out of thin air, like these are not like scientific or biblical principles or anything. I mean, like, this is literally just what I came up with to help myself so that when I feel overwhelmed, I have those to go back to. Okay. Like, those are things. So instead of thinking of it as I have to do this, think of it as I have these as something to help me keep going, even when I feel stuck. I have something to help me get started when I feel overwhelmed and can't get started. I have something that I now know these are steps to do when my space isn't working the way that I want to work, instead of I'm a failure if I don't follow these rules. Like, the rules, they're not rules. The guidelines, the strategies, the steps are there to help you, not to make you feel like a failure. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, they're to keep you from feeling like a failure, as opposed to making you feel like a failure.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think I have flipped that. And as of late, I've had quite a few stresses in my life. I'm the youngest of 4 siblings, and I am the only one that has not had or currently has COVID in their home.
Oh, wow.
And I think that I've wanted things to be perfect. And I know better, not perfect, is what keeps us going. And while I can totally acknowledge my house is a lot better, I cleaned out 2 out of 4 bedrooms. I'm also I'm a literal person who then says, well, no, my nephew has 3 of our bins in the closet, and I know what's in those bins. I couldn't make another spot for my deceased grandmother's quilt that she made me. And my husband has like his bin of Afghans that his mom or other relatives have made him. And so my very literal brain says, nope, it's not completely cleaned out. There's like 3 bins in that closet. It is not completely cleared out. And I don't seem to be giving myself any of the credit anymore.
Give yourself credit. You have made so much progress. And 2 things from what you just said. First of all, you're not living in an ideal situation, so you cannot expect an ideal solution. Like, this is temporary, your nephew living there. And I'm just going to be honest, there is no such thing as an ideal situation. Yeah. I mean, like, it's not a thing. Like, I don't, maybe there are people who do come up with, who finally get to some place in life where this is just it for the rest of forever. I'm not that person, and so stop looking for the ideal situation and enjoy the work that you've done. The other thing I was going to say too, I feel like you are, which there is nothing wrong with this, okay, if this is the way that you want to go. But I feel like you are tending more toward minimalism than you are toward the container concept. And if you want to be a minimalist, go for it. But the reason that I can't make minimalism my thing is because of what you're going through, is but it should go, but and it gets you into a lot of shoulds. Like, is there really a reason to have this? My brain can spiral with all the reasons why this should go, even though my heart is like, I can't let this go. And it paralyzes me. Just in the same way that as I'm picking something up and making the tough decision that what are all the ways that I could use this? What could happen in the future? Like, I have to stay away because of my personality. I have to stay away from questions that can spin out into all the what ifs and the ways that things should be, and instead go, this is my situation right now. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to trust that it's going to be okay. And so that's the reason I don't go toward minimalism, because I feel like with my brain, and I know, and here's the thing too, I'm not an expert on minimalism. So somebody who is probably like, oh, no, that's not what we're doing at all. And that's fine. And that's great. And they're correct. I'm not, because I don't study minimalism. But that's the reason I personally don't go that direction, is because it lets my brain spin. And I need to stay away from that. So the concrete thing of, this is the container, which you've already said has helped you a lot, thinking of things as containers, letting that make those tough decisions and saying, there are 3 containers in my nephew's room, in his closet. He is perfectly fine to live in that room right now. He's able to have what he needs. He is not having to sleep on the floor because those 3 containers take up the space that we would use for a bed. You know, I mean, like, it's not harming. He's also living in your house. He knows it's a temporary situation. This is not a, final. I mean, if this was his room that is going to be his forever, we might be talking something different. But as it is, it's okay for those containers to be in there, because the space exists and it's not keeping him from being able to have a comfortable room. If you had the whole entire room full and you said, okay, there's a tiny little spot there, you can put a sleeping bag and, welcome to our home, then that's a different situation, if that was what you were doing. But instead, it's this, okay, those things can go there and we're going to keep on living our life.
I really love what you just said. And yeah, I think I might be totally confusing my reality with some idealistic dream of, having all of my spaces clear, and beating myself up that they're not clear, when the reality is that when my daughter wants to go outside and sit on the swing, I like being able to point at the pump sunscreen bottle and she knows, go put on sunscreen. Mm-hmm. And it's because it's sitting there and it's totally functional. I think I have jumbled things up in my brain, and I actually almost cried and told my husband that it feels like I am so close, but the finish line completely disappeared and I have no way of getting there. And, maybe the fact that I can see the big box of crayons, but she uses those crayons because she dictates cards. I write it out and put boxes for her to write in. And then she uses her crayons or colored pencils or gel pens on the top. And we do that 2 or 3 days a week. I think I've got this whole thing in my mind that it's clutter if I can see it and it doesn't look perfect, but maybe it's not clutter at all.
I mean, everybody's house is different. And, if it's driving you crazy because you literally can't relax, that's fine. But if it's driving you crazy because you think that it's supposed to be a different way, but in reality, you're fine with it there, then, it's your house and you do what you need to do and function the way that you need to function. And also, you said the finish line. There isn't a finish line. And remember that better is the goal. And better is always the goal. We all still kind of, but isn't there a finish line? And I'm like, well, but isn't life all about the finish line moving? The minute that you think you get to some point in life where, oh, okay, here I am, that's when everything's going to be easy. I mean, we've all, if you're 45, I'm 47. You said you're 45, right? Yeah. I'm 47. I mean, I feel like that's basically what I've learned in life is, whatever I think the finish line is, when I get there, it's going to be something else. And so I might as well do the best that I can, make things better and enjoy things as I'm going, because, I mean, if nothing else, COVID times have taught us that there is no predicting anything, so we might as well make the best of where we are right now, whatever that looks like. So, okay. Is there something else you wanted to go over? We've got a few more minutes left.
I think that this was exactly what I needed today.
I'm so glad to hear that.
I think I can actually go back and give myself a lot more credit now because, yeah, I've been wanting something that honestly won't work for me. The way that you put things, I understand. And that was something that I totally and completely appreciated about finding this, because I've always found that when I'm reading or listening to somebody talk about decluttering or organizing, it's coming from a state of mind that I can't even conceive. Thank you. I think I started out with this, seeking more help in how to declutter. And I think instead, I'm realizing that I need to find smaller containers, because that's actually probably half the problem that I have. And yay, my daughter will be happy that we get to eat more Altoids. and and I thank you for reminding me to give myself credit.
Yeah.
Because I am light years away from where I was when I started. And I can't keep beating myself up that, I'm not getting rid of as much, because getting rid of was important. But when you start buying less and you've already gotten rid of so much, you're not going to fill up your donate closet every week.
And that's great. And there will be times where, life will kind of go on for a while, and then you'll be like, oh, all of a sudden I've got a lot of stuff, either because something has changed and you've realized is a category of things that doesn't matter to you anymore, or, you did have an influx of new things come in for whatever reason, and okay, it's time to get rid of, so there's always going to be more to declutter, but yeah, it's something to celebrate that you've come this far. So I love that.
I think I just truly want to say thank you, because this has been incredibly life-changing, and I could not be providing a safe home for my mother-in-law, who desperately needed it, without this method. So thank you.
Well, I'm so glad for that. I'm so glad. So tell me what you love about being a kindred spirit.
I love all of the support that I get. And I'm really hooked on before and progress pictures. It is so good to know that I am completely not alone, that I'm not the only neurotic person that has to look at this and say, can I really throw it away?
Right.
But I am grateful that, because I've been on this journey for a while now, it's much, much easier. And I love knowing that I am not alone, but also probably the most important thing is I'm not ashamed anymore.
That's huge.
Yeah. There isn't anything really good in my life that's came about from self-loathing. And this was a part of myself that I was completely ashamed of and just loathed. And now I'm in the same boat as the rest of you, and we're all making progress. And yeah, here's the mess. Here's the picture. And nobody berates it. We just all support.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that about that group so much. I think it's, I shared my own pictures for years, and I was the only one sharing it, and didn't know the value of just so many people being able to share their own progress, their own struggles. And, it kind of takes some of the pressure off of me too, to, to continually, show all my pictures. But yeah, I love that group. So, well, I love it. And thank you so much for coming on the show today. And I look forward to seeing some of your, smaller containers. So you'll have to make sure you share in the group.
I will definitely be sharing in the group. I just have to locate them, because one of the other things that I have been doing is, when boxes and things are coming in, they get out to recycled a whole lot faster than they used to.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah.
Ironically, now I'm going to reverse that and take a look and see if I should keep it. But It's always got to be smaller and getting rid of something bigger.
Smaller and use it now. Because that's the thing too. If boxes are continually coming in, you don't have to save it for what if. Just say, okay, what in here, what could I actually use right now? Like, oh, this is a good size. I can go ahead and do this. And that'll make a huge difference. Okay. Did you guys like that conversation with Heather? I thought we worked through a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, really just congratulate yourself on doing so much work and really making such progress. I think sometimes it can be easy to get caught up in the nitty gritty, and it's hard to like step back and go, wow, I need to be proud of myself. Anyway, so I hope you learned something from that or you got something from it. So just want to remind you on Tuesday, that's when I'm going to do the live webinar on my book publishing journey, blah, 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 whatever. Y'all know I already talked about it forever at the beginning. Okay. So go to wwwaslobcomescleancomp18446, WRITE, to find out more about that. Okay. I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.